This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
This is very, very powerful because what you're doing is not only getting on level playing field with your W-2 friends to put away that 19 or 20 a year, you can also do a profit share for, you're looking at another, call it 35K plus and multiply that by 2 if you're a husband-wife team, sort of say. So, simple math right off the bat. If you made 100,000, say as a one-man consultancy, you can do, 19 and change and then another 20,000. So, rounding up here a little bit, you're talking about 40,000 right off the bat. You're lowering your gross income that's going into a retirement account.
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. For people jumping into the real estate game, it can be difficult raising capital. Now, the key is establishing a network for your capital raising efforts. Now, when you're starting out, these relationships can be hard to come by, which is why it's important to put yourself out there and establish yourself as a thought leader and create value for potential investors and for others as well. Now, today's guest, he understands all this. He is an active real estate investor, and he and his partners have raised millions of dollars from family offices and other individuals as well. Now, he is an expert capital raiser that helps people use their retirement savings like self-directed IRAs and 401ks to invest in real estate. Now, the strategy is not known by a lot of people, but as a syndicator, he's been able to educate potential investors about using this great super tool. Now, he is also an expert in the self-storage space and has been able to generate wealth for himself and for his investors in that realm as well. So we're going to get into that. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Dan Kryzanowski to the show. Dan, buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
Augustino, such a pleasure. Great to be here today.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Now, guys, if I like what Dan has to say, you can reach him via the contact page at rocketdollar.com. Okay, Dan, tell listeners a little bit about your journey and how'd you get started in all this?
Sure. So much like you, I'm from the Rust Belt. I'm from Scranton, PA. I played on Biden's Little League field and I rode with Trump Jr. So, no more politics, but kind of down the middle. And like many folks listening here, I call it the political party of common sense and being business friendly here, because I do think entrepreneurs drive it. So I love everything. And, the 300 plus people that you've had on before. So thank you for this great community. My life is pretty standard. Talking to my fellow Gen Xers out there, till age 30, I, went to Wharton, did corporate, got an MBA, pretty standard, maxed out my 401k. And I thought this was great and was under the assumption the world would take care of me and everything would flow. Well, 2008 was a bit of a wake up call. And I feel I had a bit of foresight. My wife being from Mexico, we settled on Austin, Texas over a decade ago. So before it seems like millions of people have come here in the last year. We had our boots on the ground here first. And I made a conscious decision to shift from big corporate GE to say, hey, let me take care of myself. Let me manage my own money, my own time, et cetera, head to toe, and have been heavy in the real estate and finance worlds, particularly here in Texas, which have led to some great opportunities, as you alluded to, from, self-storage down to bar restaurants to speaking in front of a big family office show with a purple t-shirt that said no taxes on it. So it's been a great ride. And, ultimately, I think it's just, being true to yourself and always, leading with education and looking to serve others.
Yeah, excellent. Now, as I mentioned at the top of this discussion here, raising money seems to be one of the biggest issues that many, especially newer people that are getting into this business, have a hard time with. I think it has mostly to do with they're not familiar with how to do it. Like, so how did you stumble on your ability to raise capital for the deals that you're doing these days?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate that it was a hobby for me before it became the livelihood. So first, huge empathy to anybody in the, call it the reluctant entrepreneur stage of your life for one reason or another. I empathize with you on that. But the benefit for me was, hey, I was just sharing my story. So I was with Sparefoot about a decade ago. They were considered the top aggregator in the self-storage space. I got to meet all the COOs, CMOs, and who I felt was the best. Coincidentally, they went on their own about 6 years ago. So, of course, being a good friend, who I felt was a loyal client, I invested with him in deal one. In deal two, and right off the bat, we're hitting the pro forma. We're doing better than the pro forma. We're hitting our quarterly dividends. I'm just evangelizing my story as an LP investor. So first and foremost, for folks that haven't made the jump, I would strongly suggest being an LP investor. There's a great quote out there. It talks about like and trust. And if you even think of like Facebook these days, you can like a whole lot of people, like a whole lot of things. When do you trust them is when money moves. So from that standpoint, folks that want to get into the game, you do have to show some trust. And this is where I love self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks, and we'll talk about. And then likewise, too, if you are sponsoring, and once again, you have an old 401k IRA, you can use that in other people's deals. So don't be stingy kind of with your money. Share it around the community. You're going to learn a lot more. And once again, the like versus trust analogy, showing that mutual trust, I think, could be a great way. Because as you become known as, like I'm known as the self-storage guy, or now the industrial guy here in Texas, other folks might be in a different asset class, a different geography. You get these in-kind introductions, which I would just say is a nice added bump to get through particularly your first raise a lot quicker.
Yes. Now, for those people that aren't familiar, what is a self-directed IRA? Like, what is all that you really you'd like to push? I know a lot.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good education because first, the most that you may have heard of it was in the news the last few months with the whole Peter Thiel thing with this Roth IRA. So, not blanket level statement. It's politics. It's not business. I don't think it's going to get passed. That's just my personal opinion. That said, it is something to be aware of. So let's step back a little bit. What are self-directed IRAs? And by self-directed, I don't mean, hey, I can go into my Fidelity and choose from 2 mutual funds. Yes, you are self-directing, but that's lowercase st. I want a big ST like a Scooby-Doo here to say, hey, guys, self-directed IRA. It's been around since the 1970s. It means you have access to your money. You can basically invest in anything you want when you want. Let's talk about the exceptions first. No life insurance, no collectibles. The most common one is not yourself or your linear family. So what does this mean? I grew up in PA. I can't buy a flat or a beach house on the Jersey Shore and stay with it on the weekends. I can't invest in my son's lemonade stand startup. I can't buy a house that my mom can come down and visit us here in Texas. Everything else, slight exception, cannabis, the product, maybe not call it the picks and shovels in the industry, is pretty much in play. So with that said, the biggest takeaway and what I've been kind of evangelizing for years is to make folks aware that you can use your retirement dollars to invest in real estate. State a little bit differently, and all this will probably be my bulletproof advice you'll hear a few times here is, did you know that your investors can use their retirement dollars to invest in your next deal? And folks that I've shared that simple sentence tend to get 10 to 20% of their raises done. I like to joke, you can take Friday off because you're done. And, the feel-good stories is where you have somebody, you've known them, they really like your deal, they really want to get in, but let's say they have 2 or 3 kids at, let's pick Case Western, we'll go in your backyard here, some great private schools. But they worked 30 years for, General Electric, let's say. They can tap into that old 401k to invest in your deal. Once again, very, very powerful. And it tends to be the audience, the more corporate, the more letters they have at the end of their name, doctors, et cetera, the less they may know about this. So you as a fundraiser, as a sponsor, have to share this little piece of education with them.
Yeah, it's huge because it's funny. When I was working my way through corporate America as a C-level executive, I had no idea that you could even do any of this stuff. And to reiterate, this stuff is amazing. You take the cash that's locked up in a 401k that you've been told you cannot do anything with.
Yep.
You move it to a custodian that allows you to do whatever you want with it, right? You can't cash it out, but you can take it and you can invest it as an LP in a deal, get those returns. They go back into that account and tax-free, of course, right? Until you have a taxable event. But it's absolutely beautiful because now you have all that money that's back in the account. You can redistribute that to do other things as well, right? It's amazing stuff. But people, like you said, they're just not aware of it. It's not in the best interest of Wall Street to do that. That's part of the reason why, right? I mean,
that's definitely a reason. And I love how you mentioned your corporate ties, and for especially folks, I'd say 40 and above listening in. A lot of us kind of grew up corporate. Our parents were very corporate. They had the whole 60-40 stock bond. This is what was trained for us. And there is a lot of psychology behind it too, but it's almost two different lives that you live between now and retirement when it's frankly the same life and the same portfolio. And then folks are thinking, well, I can never touch this, but yeah, let me take my kids' tuition money and, put it in some crazy startup idea. Bit of an extreme, but I have seen that happen before.
Oh my God.
Anyways, I won't share more. I'll say my first investment was in a comedy tour. It ended up becoming a pretty good tax write-off. I'll just put it that way. But
right,
you got to learn a little bit down here.
Wow, that's insane. But I think something that you mentioned a second ago is that if someone you're talking to people, you're telling them about your deal, and someone is interested in investing with you, but they don't have the actual cash in the bank, but they do have a couple $100,000 sitting in a 401k, maybe from one that they left with a previous company. They can use that cash, put into a self-directed IRA, and invest in your deal. Many people, again, are not aware of this. This is huge, right? This is huge. This is big.
Yeah, and once again, it's the one sentence. Did you know your investors can use your retirement dollars? And from there, and obviously, I'm going to refer to Rocket Dollar because I was with them. I was an advisor and investor. Coincidentally, we kind of ate our own dog food. I used actually a solo 401k, which is another type of self-directed account, to invest in Rocket Dollar. But we felt primarily for the sponsors also, because we don't expect sponsors, to be experts in this space, but created an award-winning knowledge base. You might think of it as an FAQ, but we really, HubSpot said, guys, this is tremendous. So whether it's Rocket Dollar or another longtime custodian out there, it's good to reference a knowledge base that your individual investors can read up on. Once again, it's legal, it's out there. Frankly, it's not complicated at all. I'd say, especially for our realtor friends, anybody that's 1099 self-employed, there's something called the solo 401k. Mm-hmm. Also, as the individual 401k, some people term it the EQRP. This is very, very powerful because what you're doing is not only getting on level playing field with your W-2 friends to put away that 19 or 20 a year. You can also do a profit share for, you're looking at another, call it 35K plus, and multiply that by 2. If you're a husband-wife team, sort of say. So, simple math right off the bat. If you made 100,000, say as a one-man consultancy, you can do, 19 and change, and then another 20,000. So, rounding up here a little bit, you're talking about 40,000 right off the bat. You're lowering your gross income that's going into a retirement account. Now, some other bonuses. Let's play this out here, because I know a lot of folks are also entrepreneurs doing stuff outside of the crazy contributions. In a good way, of course. I think you can also borrow up to $50,000. So as long as you pay it back over 5 years, and you can do anything with that cash. I talked before, once again, what you cannot invest in. You can invest in your kid's startup, et cetera. With the solo 401k, you can borrow that money. So where does this play out in the real world here? It's like, hey, I don't want to do a raise yet. I might just need a little bit. And let's just say if I'm not good at this at all, I'll go back and get a W-2 job. You have that ability to borrow from yourself. It's not a hardship. It's not a medical that you see kind of in your company's 401k plan. This is different. So this is super powerful. And then for me, I'd say a little more sophisticated investors, the cherry on top is in the SDIRA world, you have a pre-tax and aka traditional, and Roth. Those are two separate unique accounts. In this magical world of the solo 401k, you can have two checking accounts, one for pre-tax, one for Roth. So round numbers, let's say you move 100K on day one, you really like this startup idea. Or say, hey, a self-storage facility, which I have seen this played out. Before investing, you can do a Roth conversion a la, your banking app. Of course, you'll pay taxes on, let's just say for $50,000 you moved over. You'll pay on that AGI now, but let's say that storage deal goes 3x, and then you do it again and again. This becomes 500,000 in 10 plus years. You would have been paying on this small 50 chunk, not the 500.
Right. And I mean, I think there comes a time when you just have to take the tax hit for a bigger back end down the road, right? That's the thing. I mean, many people just get hung up on the fact that they're going to have to take a tax hit up front. Sometimes it's okay. It's okay to do that. Now shifting gears, when it comes to raising money from family offices, I know that's a very for many people very elusive. Many people don't even know what a family office is. Can maybe describe for the audience, what is a family office? What sort of people are in family offices, and what sort of deals are they typically looking for?
Yeah, and one thing you hear a lot within the family office world is that if you know one family office, you know one family office. They're all, very different sort of snowflakes. So what a family office is a wealthy family, somebody managing their money is probably the most basic way to put it, that wants to primarily preserve their wealth to live a certain lifestyle. Is probably the most simple way to do it. So you might have some smaller family offices where I have friends that are probably very, relatively speaking, call it double digits, in the low tens of millions of family offices and they probably have a few properties and do stuff, but they act much like you and I would act managing our portfolio. The flip side, you get, the $1 billion plus here in Austin, Michael Dell and his foundation. Obviously, he's not the one doing this. He has a fantastic team of folks. And then you're getting more of the centimillionaire. So Richard C. Wilson, good friend and of the Family Office Club, he focuses on this middle where, okay, you have good wealth. Obviously, you're not, we're close to starving, but you don't have a mega team. Maybe you have one person, but you're not super sophisticated. And oddly enough, you think anybody with 9 figures gets all these deals to them, but they might not, because maybe it was, the legacy cousin, not somebody that's really versed in the space that knows how to manage deal flow. Frankly, technology lacks in some of these family offices, how they look at things. But ultimately, that's from there. One point I do want to make is family offices do not need, and I'll stress the word need, to make an imminent decision for their livelihood. They probably would be okay if they passed on the next 50 deals, to put it that way.
Right.
So,
there's no big push like there would be in, say, some sort of fund where it's like, we have to put all this money to work. We have 12 months to do it. Hurry, find a deal. They don't have the same sort of pressure.
And what you see in two things, I think. One is, if you were in the consumer foods business, well, you're probably going to at least consider consumer foods or CPG. You probably want something that's a little more safe, like real estate. And yeah, there's probably some touching stocks or bonds. That said, and I've heard this in very open doors, not even closed door settings, that a lot of family offices say, listen, I have less than 10% of my stuff in stocks and bonds. This is how I became wealthy and will become wealthier. So I have a lot of my stuff in real estate. And you can pick your biography of anybody through American history or global history. Real estate is the way. And a lot of times they're investing via trust, not themselves. There's a great quote to say, what is it? Own nothing but control everything.
Yeah, it's John D. Rockefeller.
Yeah, and it's legal. They're playing the tax code. It's been out there forever. Once again, politics aside with Trump, he didn't even admit it. I was just following the tax code, and it's a game, and this is how it's played. So, with that, the relationships are even more. It's tough to just, hey, I'm going to go to a show, meet a family office, shake hands, we're going to transact tomorrow. No, I think this is where it comes down to is, who do you want to hang out with? Particularly, if a family office comes to a show where I'm speaking or one of my colleagues is speaking, why did they come to this show? Was it because, for example, self-storage was on stage and we were talking self-storage, or I'm talking industrial real estate in Texas? if somebody came to you, like, hey, you might want to get over there and shake hands pretty quickly. And then ultimately, and this is kind of sales 101, who's the decision maker? Can you be talking to somebody every week, for 50 weeks straight, but then the patriarch or matriarch can give the thumbs up or thumbs down? Or is it where they have a pretty established process? Hey, here's what we're looking at, et cetera. So a lot of times it's also learning of their mandate, because what you're going to see, and you hear this time and time again, your deal may not fit a family office, but somebody else kind of in our shoes raising capital, their deal may. And it's funny how many times the first deal of your introduction was frankly not your deal, it was somebody else's. So I share all this because it's a longer term, it's a little more spiffier sort of brand that you should have a little more buttoned up. And it takes time. So it may or may not make sense for folks to get into. But I'd say if you did put a good 3-year commitment, including marketing budget, you should have a better chance to have some successes in the family office space.
Now, I guess a real big question is, how does one get in front of family offices then? I mean, and clearly not berating the people who are just getting started. That's not going to be your audience, right? You're not going to talk to a family office if you're just getting rolling in multifamily, right? But let's say you're an established multifamily syndicator, you have 7,000-8,000 units under your belt, you've done this for a little bit. How do you get exposure to those family offices that may be interested in throwing down some cash in some of your deals?
Yeah, I mean, first, before even going to, you may have to, even with that great resume, you may have to be willing to say, I might have to give up a lot, like a real lot, like GP control for an LP check to get this family office check. I know a lot of people that say, hell no, and that's it. They close the door on family offices. They don't even want to go down that sort of route. Other ones might want to dip their toes. There's a fair amount of, as I mentioned, Richard C. Wilson's Family Office Club. In the fall, I'll be in Fort Worth, Phoenix, their big show in Miami, actually Fort Lauderdale this year in December. Opal, I think, does a great job. IMN has been pretty good historically. And then a little more exclusive, you have Marty Sakata, Neil Jaboy, or Neil Green from Jaboy. And the Context Group has a big thing in Miami, usually in January. So I always feel, because of the relationship side, I'm not as savvy to go in there and wow somebody in a one-off. I'd say find I call them sandboxes. Find one of these sandboxes, one of these groups, maybe more, once again, if you have the budget and time, and just attend maybe 3 events, but very consistently. Because I think that's the validation for these folks. Everybody's very pleasant and cordial, but from what I've heard and what I've experienced, it generally takes about 3 times in the same group or same ecosystem, seeing the same people where somebody's like, hey, I think there's somebody you should talk to in Washington, D.C. It's like, oh, well, that's nice. I wish you said that 6 months ago. But that's just the way this plays out. So, once again, and then finally, like selfishly, I had the benefit when I was with Rocket Dollar, because we felt there was other benefits talking to fellow sponsors. Because once again, you want to raise more money faster. And that chose to be fruitful, that I had the benefit to attend these shows. And because of probably my unique background, whether Wharton as an investor, et cetera, was able to get me some stage time. So if your resume is unique enough, or let's say you've been the original blockchain guy, it's probably going to get you some stage time, even though you're doing real estate now. So you kind of want to play that out, get to know the organizers, just like anything, treat everybody like gold, and just commit to at least 1 or 2 of these sandboxes and see how it plays out.
Right. Now, is that, as a rule, is typically family office money always super expensive that you found anyway? I mean, I know that obviously, people have different appetites for different things, but it's not the first time I heard that.
Yeah, no, generally it is. And once again, it's, if you're a smaller guppy trying to swim upstream, they're going to take it. It feels, I grew up on Wall Street. I'm a kid of the 80s. There's still a little bit of that. Like, when push comes to shove, we can definitely squash you. And then if you're thinking globally, be sensitive to cultures. Yes doesn't always mean yes. And, some cultures you talk, here's the terms, and then we agree, yes. And at the 99th hour, they pull a significant change. And you're like, guys, were we both speaking English here? It's a little bit different. I share that up front because obviously the latter takes a lot more potentially budget, time, etc. So I just think it's good to be candid up front. But like anything, what I've done with relationships, in case somebody once again is coming to you, and have your antenna up if they're coming to the show that you're speaking at, you're presenting at. I would say, realize this is a much longer term sort of play, and try to get it more of a pure level. Like I don't, in some ways care, what your last name is, what your dollars are. This is me. And if we sync, great. And if not, here's what I'm doing. And in 3 years, when I do it and when I sell, I'm going to let you know every year, here's what I'm doing. And then when I sell next time around, realize because I did that big sale or I sold out, you mentioned the guy with like 8,000 or so doors, you are going to have more negotiation power in this space. And it's a long-term play. It's a sandbox that may or may not make sense for folks. And then, finally, geography helps. I mean, Miami's always been a great place. So anybody listening here from South Florida, guess what? You're not traveling. There's a lot of events that kind of hug the main sponsored events. You can take advantage there. I know in Austin, finally, after a decade, the world is coming here to visit us. I'm taking huge advantage of that. I usually get called at least once a week, like, hey, here's an event, here's an exclusive happy hour. Do you want to attend? Why did I get that? Because before the world was coming here, I was pretty good with educating, evangelizing, being true to myself, not claiming that, we were some multi-million-dollar thing. And so that I think that trueness, it's playing out, even though some of these have been kind of 10-year, I don't want to say sales cycles, but 10-year plus relationships.
Yeah, excellent. So one of the things that you really have to be good at when you're raising money is you have to know your space. And I know the one space that you're an expert in is self-storage, right? Maybe
the sun started to shine when you said self-storage.
Well, we should spend a couple of minutes talking about self-storage, because I think that the majority of the audience here, they're very familiar with the multifamily space and the typical living quarters for tenants and residents. Self-storage is a little different animal, though, right? It's a little different. I like self-storage. It's a great business. Maybe can you go spend a little bit of time telling us a little bit about self-storage, why self-storage matters?
Yeah, and trust me, I can talk for seemingly days on this because I am passionate about it. And I think ultimately where we are at collectively, aggregate as a country, and where we're going, particularly in the next decade, for many people, storage is going to shift from a want to have to a true need to have. So let's step back. Historically, and even today, 4 to 5 of the units are owned by mom and pops. Why do I share that? Because this has been a very entrepreneurial sort of endeavor. And just like a lot of us that are, either self-employed or small teams, there's a lot of things we would want to do, but are kind of limited just by time. So I share that because, particularly putting on my investor hat, my acquirer hat, could be some benefit there. On the flip side, the demand is raising significantly. 1 out of 10 Americans use storage. I mean, it's a silly number when you think of it. Particularly, once again, it was kind of a need, kind of a want, not as much of a need historically. I was at the main conference in Vegas, the SSA show, and some folks were saying we're looking at maybe 12%, maybe 1 in 8, based on some studies, some little areas. It's to the extent here in Austin where folks know that a little 5x5, maybe was going for $2 a square foot. It's now hitting the tape at $150 a square foot to rent.
Wow.
So I share some of these. These aren't blanket statements, but what I want to dispose the myth is that the headline is like, well, storage is the supply equals demand. Okay, maybe across the country and for certain points, but there is still a lot of meat on the bone. We talk about the 4 Ds, and I'll just give a high level of why storage is, I can't say recession proof because it did drop 0.5 point in 2008 when the rest of the world went down like 30%, but recession resistant, I think, is a pretty fair term. And why does this happen? And I'll just give the highlight, and maybe later on we can talk in deeper detail. But death, people pass away, divorce. 1 out of 2 couples tend to end up in that situation. Disasters, I call these the known unknowns. Unfortunately, here in Texas, there's hurricanes, around the Gulf. You just don't know when it's going to be severe, but it probably could be. Storage comes as a tremendous asset at this point. And then dislocation. These are the unknown unknowns. You walk into your boss's office, you get canned tomorrow. Well, that sucks. And that there's a lot of snowball effects where storage is, you never think of it till you really need it. Sometimes it's very emotional things. And a lot of times, sure, it's irrational. If you were to really just say black and white, is all this worth it versus, but then when you take into account the time trade-off and everything, particularly around a death or divorce, in the short term, you can argue that's okay. That said, you probably shouldn't forget about it for 10 years, although some people do. But the big thing that I want to share, the fifth D, is decluttering. So once again, I think COVID really showed like that second bedroom might have, hey, my son or daughter's moving back from college, or they're not leaving, or I can't go into my office. Somebody is moving in with us because frankly, things got too expensive in the big city. So the net effect of this, in case you truly want to be living like a hoarder and have stuff all over, is storage is becoming a natural extension of your living space. And even if there is inventory available, like, somebody in a 2 and 2 bedroom, no, you can't find a house, you can't find a 3 bedroom. So by default, if you need that extra space, and we're just not talking about the Christmas tree, although, you probably don't want a Christmas tree up 12 months a year in your house, but you're talking about, frankly, it could be your child's winter clothes. It could be old tax returns, truly essential stuff,
right?
Has to go into storage. So vis-a-vis saying, I'm going to spend, 100 hours to find some 3 bedroom that's probably farther away just to have that 3rd bedroom. Or I can go online through the likes of the Sparefoot, type in my zip code and get even, $100 a month's a lot, but versus potentially an extra bedroom, it's kind of a bargain. So storage is now becoming this natural extension. And a final point here is you're having a lot of millennials, Gen Z, that are touching storage, whether, pre-COVID when they were at college, or just from the kind of the spirit of living a little more minimalistic, or saying, my surfboard's in there in the winter, my skis go in there in the summer. And for that $50 a month, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's worth it. So a lot more Americans, for better or worse, are touching it. So that's really big on the demand side. But I want to share that 2 things. One, I feel the demand is here to stay. And I think like anything, when there's high demand, you can raise rents. And on the flip side, although it sounds very simple, you probably have to be around the sun at least 18 months in storage to get a feel. And then the whole, I think, 10,000 hour rule applies to be a really sophisticated operator in the space. And I've had the benefit to really get to know who I felt been the top owner operators, and they've done great things for myself and fellow investors.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that the self-storage business is something that is part of American culture, so to speak, right? Because of consumerism, where we buy a lot of stuff. I see a little bit of it in Canada because I'm from Canada originally, and I've seen self-storage there, but not nearly as much as is here. But in other countries, you just don't see it. You don't even, it's just not there.
I hear you. It's picking up though. And you can argue, just like the American diet is, but there's more in Mexico City. I said my wife's from Mexico, and we go down, we see more. Obviously, I'm attuned to it because I've been in the space. The countries under the crown, it's growing. Even in Europe, and there's different brands and such, but it's starting to grow. So I do think it's becoming more common. I even read, Try to Keep It Positive, Good News Network had an article about it's kind of, attractive spray painting and designs and stuff, make it look very kitschy and urban for like small term, smaller size sort of storage. So it's out there. And if we go very macro to say, is it a need versus a want? Let's say some of these other countries that weren't, say as much American as we are. There's an article in Berlin. So it's unique about, I believe it's in Berlin or maybe the German Constitution, that the state can buy back multifamily properties. They have the right. So it was actually voted. The people in Berlin said, listen, this is just too much. Rents have gone up 50, 60% the last decade. Now, that said, it's going to go through your typical politicking. I don't know if it ever will happen, even if it does or doesn't. So going full circle here is there an opportunity for storage? Yeah, there probably is. The little German blood in me, it'll be probably very efficient and multiple people sharing it, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think there's an opportunity as particularly if you have to pay a lot more for your rent to survive, you might want this other, you're trading off space for something else. And I think once again, I think storage is in a pretty good place. And I think this is a bit more of a global trend. So like anything, now's a good time to get in early, whether it's in Canada or if you have ties elsewhere. I would strongly suggest it.
Nice. Good. And I think the point here is that clearly you know what you're doing. when you're talking to investors, it becomes a very easy sell to get them to say invest in a self-storage deal, because you know the material. Same thing for multifamily or development or whatever else you're working on out there, guys. If you got to know the material that you're selling, so that investor is comfortable throwing down money on your deal. That's the long and short of it. So Dan, if you had some bulletproof advice for our listeners, what would you tell them?
Did you know you can use your retirement dollars to invest in real estate?
Oh my God, is that right?
Never heard that before from me. It should be above. I feel my name is a little tougher to spell than that, to get that message across. But no, honestly, and I mean, just make your investors aware of this. And listen, there's so many great folks in this space. Obviously, I'm tied with Rocket Dollar that you should consider. And I think the big delta is, do you want checkbook control? Do you want access to your money 24/7, or do you want to go through custodian? And depending on how you're wired, they're both good on both sides. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. And I would just say, really own a niche, own a geography, as you see, above me here, Texas CRE. I mean, this is what that's why I'm aligned with BV Capital. As much as I shared on storage, I can share the praises for industrial that has done better, and for multiple reasons probably will continue to do just as good. And we have a pretty good, portfolio down here in Texas too. So that's probably for a future call. If anybody wants to nerd out on the side with that, please, reach out to me. But once again, bulletproof advice, tell folks they can use their retirement dollars to invest in your next deal.
And that's huge. And that really is huge.
It's literally $10 trillion huge. So we got a lot of ways to go.
That's right. Well, guys, if you want to reach out to Dan, you can reach him via the contact page at rocketdollar.com. Hope you got some insight on raising money using self-directed IRAs, and of course, the self-storage business as well. We're going to go a little bit deeper on that subject as well, but I hope we got a little bit of a taste on that. I think looking at different asset classes might be a way to help diversify what you're doing in the real estate business. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.